There are reasons that this place has been named the world's best theme park, and one of those reasons is because of its completion in terms of theming and ride offering. Poseidon in Germany's Europa-Park in Rust was my second ever MACK Rides Water Coaster, and this ride is a mix of a normal water ride and a roller coaster, and so it features these 8-rider boat cars for the purpose of theming. The ride is actually just as old as me, with it being from the year 2000, and I must say that it does show its age, while also seeming brand new at the same time. In my review, I will look at this ride from several different perspectives in order to find out how good it is. I will go through 7 different categories where I will grant scores from 0 to 10, where those scores will then go to a final average score. First though, we will quickly look at how the stats are. And Poseidon stands at a height of 75.5 feet with a good length of 2,742.8 feet, as well as a nice top speed of 43.5 miles an hour. It should also be said that the length includes both the roller coaster parts as well as the sailing parts, and 2 lift hills as well, and some of the speed also comes from the ride going slightly underground. The very first thing we're going to talk about is appearance, and Poseidon is a beautiful ride. It's located in the Greek area of the park, and it is the star of the show there, with it being located in this huge, gorgeous lake, while having awesome and beautiful theming around it. The coaster itself looks absolutely great, with a very pretty cobalt blue, which fits in perfectly with the theme and the surroundings. And the skyline seen from the right angles is just amazing. This really is a sight for sore eyes. At first glance, I would have absolutely no problem with giving it a 10 out of 10 for how it looks and how it's presented as well. But unfortunately, there is just one thing which will drag it down to a 9 out of 10, which is that parts of the track are rusty, and I mean very rusty. It's really unfortunate, but it is what it is. But when you think about it, it is an older water coaster and the boats are wet underneath, so when they run and drip on this iron-based track, it's only logical that rust will appear. G-forces is up next, which is about its intensity, and Poseidon does have some decent forces. The coaster is separated into 2 roller coaster parts since it has 2 lift hills. The first part is a mix of a bunch of turns, and the second part is a drop and an airtime hill. In the first part, you'll start by going into the small curved drop, which doesn't really do anything besides providing a bit of speed before it ends up in the first mid-course brake run. Then you hit the big turn, and this is a kind of turn that gets some good speed before turning up into another mid-course brake run. The turn itself is actually somewhat underbanked, meaning that you're going to experience some nice laterals and being pushed to the side of the car. You'll be slightly pushed to the right during this turn, which is nice. They aren't strong laterals like on a Wild Mouse coaster, but they're definitely there. Then you hit a downwards left turn, which doesn't do a lot besides giving good speed. At the bottom, which is the underground part, you turn right, not many laterals here, and go upwards and snap back into a whippy transition, which will get you into the water, while also providing some weak floater airtime. After the second lift hill, you will hit a turnaround, which will get you to the part of the ride with the best airtime, especially if you're in the back row. Now this drop is very weird. MACK Rides like to do these drops in their water coasters where they go down at an angle, then almost go straight, and then they dip even more. It's like a mix of a double down and a normal drop. I have no idea what to call it, but since it waits with going steeper until you've already gained some speed, you're going to get some very neat floater airtime, which feels awesome. You're going to hit the floater airtime hill then, and this hill does give you some floater, however it is a little weaker than I would have liked. I've also ridden Skatteøen at Sommerland in Denmark, which also does this, and that hill's airtime is a little stronger. So Poseidon did let me down, but there is still airtime and you still get the weightless feeling, and the best part of it is that it's consistent. It lasts all the way through. Also, something to mention is that the bottom of the double dipping drop also gives some nice forces. You'll get consistent 3 Gs here, so in general Poseidon's forces aren't really strong, but there is a little bit of everything. I'm going to give Poseidon a 5. The forces present are nice, but they could have been better, so I feel like being right in the middle is right. Now, one of the things that really makes Poseidon show its age is the smoothness, because it really doesn't have any. Poseidon is unfortunately a rougher ride. Not intensely rough, but just rough in general. It shakes from side to side on pretty much all of the roller coaster sections, and the roughest part is definitely that big underbank turn after the first mid-course brake run. That turn is very shaky, and on the way down it has this very hard jolt which really whips you from one side to the other. That's Poseidon's one very rough part. The coaster deserves a 5. It's not as rough as other coasters like Euromir, but it is decently rough and couldn't be called smooth in 1,000 years. Now, ride time is a category in which I will discuss how long the ride feels, and this can definitely be looked at from several perspectives. Because Poseidon has those sailing parts where it really doesn't do anything ride-wise. I am going to count this, however, since it does give some experience. It's where you experience the most theming, and it's where you react after getting soaking wet, and it simply adds to how long the ride feels. So when you combine that with the roller coaster parts, the first of which is also not too short, Poseidon actually offers a very long ride. Long enough for a 10 out of 10. You're going to come off this ride thinking, wow, we actually boarded the coaster quite a long time ago, and that's what it's all about. One of my favorite parts about Poseidon is its theming. As mentioned, the coaster is placed within the Greece area of the park, and the theming around the coaster is just absolutely phenomenal. The ride experience really starts in the queue line, where you see all these Greek statues and such, and I've actually been to Greece myself, so I can just say right now that whenever I'm going to call Poseidon's theming realistic, it's because it's exactly like what you're actually going to experience in Greece. When you get to the station, you see all of this amazing theming on the walls. There's everything from little details to Poseidon's trident. Then during the ride, you sail into this incredible little pre-lift area, where the theming simply is flawless. I was blown away by this part. There are broken ships, architecture, and there's this very realistic animatronic of a blind bloke. And the area itself is supposed to be like a flooded city, and it's just so realistic and cool. Honestly, this was possibly my favorite part of the ride. When you get to the first coaster part, however, there unfortunately isn't a lot of theming. That is until you hit the tunnel though, which is like Greek marble and looks like a Greek ruin. When you then hit the water, you see the station, which is just like the Acropolis in the Greek capital of Athens, and I just love it. There's also beautiful rock work, as well as little things here and there in the water. The same goes for the straight drop into the second underground part, which is also gorgeous rock work. Poseidon's theming really is top class, and usually I would pull a point away because the first coaster part doesn't really have theming, but because it is such a small part of the ride and the entire ride's general theming, including beautiful music by the way, is just outstanding, I have to give this ride a 10 out of 10 for overall theming. Poseidon was, at the time of its opening, a massive milestone in the roller coaster industry. It's not the first water coaster ever built, in fact not even the first one by MACK Rides, but as I will discuss, its originality still holds up a bit. When Poseidon opened, it was the first water coaster with such presentation. When we think about water coasters today, we often picture a MACK Rides Water Coaster, and the only MACK water coaster built before Poseidon was Journey to Atlantis in SeaWorld Orlando, and that ride has quite a different presentation to it. Poseidon, however, is what really made the water coaster an iconic type of roller coaster. Its type of layout was also very original. Everything from the iconic underbank turn to the iconic double dipping drop and floater airtime hill is going to earn Poseidon points in this category. Now I will of course still acknowledge that it isn't the first water coaster or a prototype of its model, but it still is very different from every other water coaster built before it, and I will give it a score of 6, which I think is a good score. Overall fun is the last category, and it's arguably the most important one, since of course we do ride roller coasters to have fun. So how fun is Poseidon? I think it very much depends on how you look at the coaster. If you look for thrills, it can be a little dull here and there, and it's definitely not going to be your favorite ride. But if you like theming, you are very much going to enjoy this ride. I'm going to base my score on my own ride, of course, and I really liked my ride on this coaster. I did think Poseidon lacked a little here and there regarding the fun, but other parts were also very fun. One thing that's always fun on a water coaster is of course the splashdowns, which will get you soaking wet. The drops themselves are also fun, and of course the theming. And for a final combination of fun elements, Poseidon earns a 7 for fun factor, which is on the positive side. The 7 scores can now be added and turned into an average, which will be our final score. Poseidon ends up with a 7.4 out of 10, which is great for a water coaster its age. I think this is a must ride at Europa-Park. It's generally fun, fascinating, and simply an awesome water coaster, and it is the best ride in the park for the family on a hot summer day, like when I was there, when it was around 30 degrees Celsius during both my visits. So if you ever want to cool down in the park, go for a ride on Poseidon, at least if you're close by. That has been it for my review of my second MACK Rides Water Coaster. Make sure to tell me what you think of it in the comments below if you've experienced it yourself. And if you want to show your support, don't forget to like and subscribe in case you enjoyed, which will also help you know when my future content comes out if you would like to know. Otherwise, it has been Northern Rides, and I hope you all keep on riding.